And welcome to Team 2, where two is better than
One.
two is better than one. My name is Dr. Harrison Mungal,
I'm Kathleen.
and today we want to talk to you, continue with the same topic we had for the past couple of weeks on conflict resolution and what are some of the major problems that couples are dealing with in terms of conflict, and what are some of the solutions that we have seen work in a lot of couples' lives as a result of implementing these solutions. So we talk about communication was, I think, one of the first one on the research that was
Lack
done.
of communication.
Lack of communication. The second one was financial struggles. The third one was
Infidelity.
infidelity and betrayal.
Mhm.
And the fourth one, according to research that shows where couples have major conflict and that leads to separation and divorce. I wonder if you know what the fourth one can be.
Mm.
I don't know. Well, the fourth one is unmet emotional needs.
Mhm.
And of course, there's about seven major um, areas of issues that couples have to deal with that causes that leads to separation and divorce. But we want to give you the four major ones, and this fourth one is unmet emotional needs. So when you think of unmet emotional needs, what are some of the things you think about?
Well, firstly, I think about as a person with a spouse, male or female, where they feel they're unseen. Like they don't feel seen in their relationship. They feel maybe abandoned in their relationship. They feel like they're not being heard, uh, maybe misunderstood. Those are kind of things I would say, or maybe even unappreciated.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking at me?
No, I feel appreciated by you.
I hope
But
so.
these are some of the things that a lot of people struggle with and in their relationships.
Well, when you think of unmet emotional needs, right? Think about some people are just not emotionally connected. Some people haven't learned the language of emotions. In fact, I did a teaching where we have an emotional mind, and in that emotional mind, it shows that opinions and perceptions are very prevalent. Now, one of the things that I always consider is the fact that God is the one who made us emotional creatures. But we have learned throughout time that culture and what society portrays has affected our functionality as men and as women. See, men were raised where emotions were a sign of weakness. So if you were to cry or if you were to show any form of emotions, it was a sign of weakness. But yet God created emotions, so why should it be treated from men in general? Whereas women, they have learned to master emotions in a good way. There are a lot of contributing factors to that in terms of, not as restricted in society as say, but also with hormones and changes in their bodies, etc. But I'm grateful for the time we're living in where emotions are something that we can express of how we feel, because it suppressing your emotions can create a time bomb.
Right. So how do you as a therapist, or how do you as a spouse help somebody to express their emotions more?
I think that first of all, we need to understand what is the purpose of emotions, how emotions can be viewed, because people sometimes need emotional regulation. Right. Sometimes people's emotions are so heightened that if you were to look like a tomato, the skin is very thin and they feel everything. And I think that there needs to be a balance, because if your emotions are like a tomato, where you're juicy inside, so you're a sweet person, but you can feel everything because the skin is so thin, then you'll be more like an emotional roller coaster. And then when I look at the other part of our emotions, it can present to be looking like a cantaloupe, where some people function only by logics and facts and rationalization. And so they're sweet inside, but they develop this wall around them. Yeah. And I find that to be more prevalent with individuals who have been through traumas or individuals who have been abused, or a lot of men are like that. They are very close outside with a thick skin, and internally they're very sweet, like a cantaloupe. But I think the function, how we need to see our emotions should be more like the avocado. And the reason I choose avocado is because the avocado skin is not thin and it's not thick. It's just neutral. And that type of mindset focuses more on the bigger picture of life, bringing a balance to life. What is best for you? What is best for me? And looking at long term, not just I feel this way, but combining your feelings in terms of opinions and perceptions, and combining the facts and logics, and looking at the bigger picture as to what is going to work well. And today, we want to talk about turning down the temperature gauge in relationship when conflict starts to rise up and individuals sort of fight with one another. But first, you need to understand that if your emotions are not mastered, or maybe really considered how you can groom or grow your emotions to become healthy, it causes a lot of frictions in the relationship.
So, like I can understand the part where you're saying emotional regulation and how to do that. But what if somebody who one is very emotional and the other one isn't? And how do you get somebody to express their emotions more in order for the other person's emotional needs to be met? How would you go about that in relationship without making them feel bad about themselves?
Well, I think that we have worked on that in our own on our own relationship. But in terms of understanding that when you are with your spouse, you shouldn't always be the speaker. You need to have a speaker and a listener, and you cannot allow your feelings to always be in the way where your feelings kind of now dominates the conversation.
Right.
It's good to have feelings. It's good to say I feel this way and I feel this way, but it's always reciprocal because we need to mirror one another. And again, it comes back to relationship is not about me, relationship about us.
Right.
And we're building something, we're investing into something that should be growing. So if emotions are not, if the emotional needs are not being met, where one may be emotionally more than the other, I think the person who have not learned about emotions need to learn how to grow their emotions, like a language. You need to learn how to speak the emotions. And everything in life, we have the capability to be able to grow in it.
So just as you're talking about that, can people come into the relationship just both speaking different languages, and they have to find a way to communicate, right? And maybe find a common language or find a language that's their own.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, because we have learned in psychology that emotions are very important in a relationship, is like the glue that connects. When people's emotions are wounded, they need healing. And we also need to consider that. But we don't want relationship where the emotions are dominating the relationship, or where, if two people are very emotionally driven, then the relationship can lead to chaos. Just as if someone is very much emotionally driven, it can also lead to chaos, because then there's no balance and it creates an eggshell environment. It creates a lot of discrepancies in the relationship. And so we see that a lot, when individuals feel emotionally abandoned, as an example, or they feel like they're not being heard, or in fact, one of the story I really appreciate that we learn a lesson from was an individual who is emotional, but her spouse was not emotional.
Right.
And the spouse thought that by connecting her with someone who was emotional, like the opposite sex, was going to help fulfill her, rather than seeing that he can grow the emotions to fulfill.
Right.
So with time and effort and working together, we were able to see a breakthrough, right? And I think that's a good example, because we can look everywhere for emotional fulfillment. It opened up a lot of doors for relationship to crumble and fall. So we're going to take a short commercial, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit about maybe some of the possible causes, and also talk about how do we turn the temperature down? What does that mean to eliminate conflict from exploding, and that leads to divorce or separation. So stay tuned.
At Team 2, we believe in the power of connection. Because 2 is always better than 1. Through therapy, workshops, and retreats, Team 2 gives couples the tools to heal, grow, and build lasting love. Join us in saving relationships, strengthening families, and restoring hope. Donate today, because love is worth fighting for.
Love is a journey, not a destination, but a discovery. At Team 2, we walk with you every step, guiding love forward. Here, every story matters, and every step forward brings light to love. Because stronger connection is the heart of every lasting relationship. Connect with Team 2 today, because 2 is better than 1.
Well, welcome back as we continue our topic today on conflict resolution and giving you a tip today in terms of turning the temperature down. We're focusing on the third highest cause for divorce and separation, which is
unmet emotional
needs. So when there is a problem, we also have to look at what is the cause. And we talked about the problem earlier in terms of bringing a balance in the emotional mind to individuals or couples in relationship. But what are some of the causes that we have discovered that may be responsible for couples that need support when it comes to emotions?
I think we talked a little bit this before on one of the other conflicts we were talking about, but unresolved traumas can definitely make somebody very high emotionally or very low emotionally, especially unresolved ones. So you come into a relationship and you really don't know how to express your emotions because maybe in the past you weren't allowed to express your emotions, or in your past there was too much emotions around in that relationship. So these are kind of some things that are causes of unmet emotional needs.
Yeah, well, I mean, trauma is a big one, as I said earlier on, because it becomes a stuck point in the mind, and people have a hard time bypassing that stuck point. But another reason I see what is the cause of, say, emotions is the inability to talk about it. Like you were saying earlier, if one is more emotional than the other, there's no room to actually talk about it because they're afraid it's going to turn into a chaotic situation. That also becomes a big problem.
And another one is unforgiving yourself, or not forgiving yourself, or forgiving your spouse, because we all make mistakes. We've all gone through different situations. And sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and we think we can't change, or we think our spouse can't change, and we don't want to forgive. But forgiveness is really the true healer in our relationships, in the things that we go through, in struggles in a relationship. We have to first learn how to forgive ourselves and also then forgive our spouse.
I think there was a research done pertaining to emotional needs, unmet emotional needs, and it was about 58.
Yeah,
58%.
Forbes say that 58% divorce in couples report arguing and conflict as the cause.
Because the emotions are not met. Emotions also are connected with, so think about the emotional mind is connected with the will, your mind, and emotions are all connected together as we call it maybe the soul of a person. And when there's lack of intimacy, that also open up the doors for unmet emotional needs, because emotionally you need to feel close to someone. You need sexual interactions with your spouse. You need to have cuddling, huddling, and snuggling together. Right?
Yeah, all that part of it. I mean, you talk about hugging and kissing and huddling. What is huddling? You just mentioned.
Is where you can sit down and have a conversation and huddle together.
In a huddle, kind of like they do in the team, right? They go into a huddle and they
talk about it. I think the more you get older in the relationship, is the more you start to realize that relationship is an investment. And if you were to put money in a bank as an example, or some kind of investment, the goal is that after some years, that is going to just blossom. You're going to get a high percentage.
Yeah.
So when you think of your marriage and think about the lacks in the marriage, you have to look at how you're going to invest in your marriage, in your relationship, so that it can grow. And with time, it just blossoms like an investment.
Right. That's very good. I like that.
The other part I look at it too is the reason why I love the concept of Team2 is if you want to open a business, as an example, and you give your business a name, like a marriage, give your marriage a name, and you have a business, both business partners need to meet in the middle and work. You need to look at the strengths you bring into the business and be able to work. And if, for example, emotional need is missing, you have to work on building it up. Because if one person keeps doing all the work and the other person is not doing the work that needs to be done, that business is going to collapse. And if there's two people running a business, then that business is like a 50-50 in that sense. But it's teamwork to make it, and the lack needs to be fulfilled by somebody else.
Right.
So unmet emotional needs, I think, is very important that couples need to invest in how to become more intuitive with one another. How do you cultivate emotions? How do you, how are you able to grow emotions? Because some people just don't know how to be emotional. They just don't know how to interact. I think, isn't it one of the love language to show affections? Yeah. So think about the bigger spectrum of life. The reason why these are considered big problems in relationship, because it shows that couples who are lacking it, they look for alternatives everywhere, and we want to avoid that from happening.
Right. No, that's true. And all these different things, like even an inability to talk. Like if you're being shut down by your spouse in your relationship, that you're unable to talk in the relationship, that also can create, that's a cause of unmet emotional needs as well. Constantly being saying, like you talk about, we can't explain about everything that the problems, but you still need to be able to share your feelings and share your ideas for your relationship and for where you see yourself going in your relationship and in your marriage. But when you're constantly being shut down and not being able to talk, that can also be a cause.
And some of you watching the show today, you're probably feeling the same, like a lot of couples feel, is like it's a one way, in terms of, why do I always have to be romantic? Why do I always have to be huggy and kissy? And why do I always have to take the first step? Why do I always have to initiate all of this? I think those are good, healthy conversations that couples need to have. And again, it comes back to some of the strategies we're saying to couples, not to have arguments, but have discussions. Talk about it. Become best friends with one another to actually have these discussions, because you're investing in something for the future. You don't want your future to be where, as you get older, you're like maybe a retired couple who's sitting on the bench at the opposite side of the bench waiting for the sun to set. You want to be the couple who are snuggling with each other and thanking God for another day that has gone by as you watch the sun set. So you think of that kind of mindset that you want to create. Because sometimes I think couples just don't have a blueprint in their head as to how to be emotionally connected, because their parents may be separated when they were a kid, or maybe they were raised by a single mom or a single dad, and they don't see how they can gel with one another.
Right. So their blueprint is just not there, or they just didn't have a healthy blueprint. Right?
Yeah, they don't have a blueprint. They don't know. It's almost like teaching them a language that they don't know. Right. And one of the things that we have learned is that your brain has the capacity to learn anything. If your right hand is dominant, you have the capacity to make your left hand dominant. So when a couple says, I just don't know how to be emotional, I don't know how to share a tear, I don't know how to be remorseful, I don't know how to express I'm feeling sorry. Those are some things that your brain can learn, because you have neurons that are waiting to connect with one another, which we call neuroplasticity, that can create something amazing. So We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, tell you about turning the temperature down, and giving you a couple tips as to what couples have done to grow their emotions so they can have a healthy relationship that is not overpowering in their lives, but a good balance. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
At Team 2, we believe in the power of connection. Because 2 is always better than 1. Through therapy, workshops, and retreats, Team 2 gives couples the tools to heal, grow, and build lasting love. Join us in saving relationships, strengthening families, and restoring hope. Donate today, because love is worth fighting for.
Love is a journey, not a destination, but a discovery. At Team 2, we walk with you every step, guiding love forward. Here, every story matters, and every step forward brings light to love. Because stronger connection is the heart of every lasting relationship. Connect with Team 2 today, because 2 is better than 1.
Well, welcome back. As we conclude today's show in talking about unmet emotional needs, we want to remind you, if you want a copy of the book, it is on Amazon.com. You can pick up a copy on 3 tips to conflict resolution. But we really want to support couples. So those of you who are watching and you see there's an interest in supporting couples, feel free to send us a donation. We want to support couples who are unable to attend therapy. We want to take couples into retreats and really build up healthy relationship. But in wrapping up today, in terms of turning the temperature gauge down, when you are sensitive to other emotions, you have the power now to be in control of how that conversation is going to go. And some individuals who strive on becoming emotionally, I call them emotional bullies. They read people's emotions and step on it to get them to even become more
Defeated.
more angry and more upset. They exacerbate the situation more than what it should be because they read the emotions and they keep pressing and pressing. But turning the temperature gauge down is very important, because the moment you read, you start sensing that your spouse is getting heated and their emotions are getting heightened. You have the power to say, hold on 1 second, I need to use the washroom as an example. And you go to the washroom and you say, for example, if you're the one getting heated and you realize you're getting too heated and your spouse is not reacting to how upset you're getting, you can stop yourself at that moment and say, I just need to go to the washroom a minute, and go to the washroom, wash your face, take a couple deep breaths, and come back and say, so where were we? The ultimate goal is to never show your weak card, because your weak card is not going to do anything better. It's going to make things worse. When you start showing your weak card in terms of how vulnerable you are, as an example, sometimes we think we're going to get more attention. Maybe we can, my spouse will listen to me. But you got to understand that not everybody who understands emotions can understand where you're coming from. So then it becomes worse. So to eliminate those problems, you have to find strategies to turn the temperature down. What would you say is another strategy?
Well, I think one that we've used, I think we both have used this strategy as well, when we're getting a little bit like, this is not going anywhere. I don't think this is kind of a silly conversation. I don't know why you're getting upset. That we will just, myself or yourself will just grab the other one and give them a kiss or give them a hug or say something that's totally opposite of that conversation, but is very light and loving. So it's like you're turning that temperature right down by doing something that other person didn't expect.
I call it actually shock the brain. When you shock the brain, you do opposite to what your mind is telling you, because at that moment, your mind probably wants to yell and scream or get into a conflict. But if you shock the brain and do the opposite what your brain is telling you to do, then you now have turned that temperature gauge down so that the arguments doesn't escalate and you end up saying things that you regret one another. That works really well for a lot of couples who are unable to maybe do the washroom thing, like escape from the washroom. But the other one you can do is you can also, most of us have our cell phone with us all the time. And when the conversation is getting heated, either the one who's emotionally aroused or the one who don't have emotions, you have to be able to see the temperature gauge is going too high. You can take the cell phone and you can say, hey, just give me 1 second. I need to make a call, or I need to take a call just to break that. Just like the washroom situation, when you take a couple deep breaths, like think of smelling a nice rose and blowing the candles out, I would say. Then you come back and you say, where were we again? That temperature gauge has dropped.
What do you mean, smell the rose and blow the candle?
It's like, you smell the rose. You smell the rose and blow the candle out. So that's what you're going to do. But making it a practice and a language in your relationship, I would encourage you to start practicing 8-second hugs at least 2 or 3 times a day. Learn to kiss each other regularly. Those are very important because you create an affection with one another. You start creating an emotional connection with one another. With those 8-second hugs. Do you know how hard it is for people to hug each other for 8 seconds? We have once a month, we do a couples connection, and seeing couples have a hard time hugging each other. Sometimes it's like, wow, it's like the first time they're hugging each other like strangers. But practice hugging each other, practice cuddling with each other, practice finding what is your comfort of when you embrace each other, how you make each other feel very happy and very comfortable. Learn how to have a lot of physical connection with one another. You're cooking, you can hug each other. You're going on the road, you can hold hands with one another. Don't be strangers with one another, because nobody else can be as close physically than your spouse. So I hope you enjoy our show today. And we're looking forward for the next show coming up. And we're going to have some more topics we're going to bring out for you on Stand as a King and Rule as a Queen. I think Team 2 is where we start to build teams together. God